Hello and welcome. You're watching Gravitas. I am Molly Gambhir. This is what's lined up for you on the show tonight. It is a meeting that will be watched closely around the world. At the G20 summit, the leaders of the US and China will have their first in-person encounter following the escalation of tensions over Taiwan. And naturally, Taiwan will be topping the agenda. And ahead of the Biden-Xi meeting, China has made its stance clear once again. It wants the one China policy to be respected. What is Joe Biden's strategy at this point? What is brewing behind the scenes ahead of that meeting? What are the expectations? That is our top focus in this edition of Gravitas. It is an encounter that the world is waiting for. For the first time, Joe Biden and Xi Jinping will come face to face. They will meet in Indonesia on the sidelines of the G20 summit. What will be the tone of these discussions? Well, we expect nothing less than confrontation. Ties between the US and China have soured. Their fierce battle over Taiwan is dictating the trajectory of this relationship. Joe Biden has already vowed to defend the island militarily if China attacks. He probably reiterates his commitment when he meets President Xi Jinping.
What I want to do with him when we talk is lay out what kind of each of our red lines are. And Taiwan doctrine has not changed at all from the very beginning. So I'm sure we'll discuss China, Taiwan.
That's the goal of this meeting as far as Biden is concerned. Why does the American president feel the need to have this chat with the Chinese president now? Well, America desperately wants to avoid a confrontation over Taiwan. Washington has shared an assessment with its European partners. Here it is. It is a stark warning. America says a conflict over Taiwan would trigger a huge economic shock. The US and its allies are stepping up their contingency planning. Let's get to the specifics here. The US State Department has shared some estimates with the Europeans. A Chinese blockade of Taiwan will cause annual losses to the tune of $2.5 trillion. Now, what was the purpose behind sharing this report? Washington believes an invasion of Taiwan will be devastating and Europe will not be insulated from the economic devastation. The US wants to ensure it has the backing of Europe on the issue of Taiwan. It has started a formal dialogue. Officials from the US and the EU have started talks. What are they discussing? How to prepare for a possible conflict over Taiwan. Now, the Biden administration is engaging with the UK as well. Earlier this year, both sides held contingency planning talks for the first time. Why does the US think all this planning is now necessary? Now, that's because America believes there is now a serious threat of an invasion. Consider this warning from last month. Admiral Michael Gilday is the chief of US naval operations. He believes China could invade Taiwan within a year and the American forces must prepare. So the threat is real. But the best way to fight a war is to prevent it in the first place. And that's why the US feels the need to engage with China directly.
For the first time since he's come into office, President Biden has come into the presidency, he will get to sit in the same room with Xi Jinping, be direct and straightforward with him as he always is, and expect the same in return from Xi, and then he can make his judgments on that basis about how to take things forward. That's why this meeting is extremely important.
That is what Joe Biden hopes to get out of this meeting. There are other things that Joe Biden hopes to discuss too, like the differences over trade, China's alleged human rights violations, missile launches by North Korea, and climate change. Fundamentally, Biden would hope to restore Washington's channels of communication with Beijing. 3 months ago, China had snapped all ties. This was after the U.S. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi visited Taiwan. She was the highest-ranking U.S. official to visit the island in 25 years. China saw the visit as a grave provocation. It responded by cutting off key communication channels. So how would Xi Jinping approach his conversation with Biden? By reminding the US president of China's red lines. China's foreign ministry gave an insight earlier today.
The Taiwan question is the core of China's core interests. The One China principle is what underpins the political foundation between China and US relations. The 3 joint communiques are the most important guardrail for China-US relations. The US needs to stop fictionalizing, holding out, and distorting the One China principle, and abide by the basic norms in international relations, including respecting each other's country's sovereignty, territorial integrity, and not interfering with other countries' internal affairs, and return to the 3 joint communiques and the One China principle.
The US and China are both major powers. They have some good reasons to work together, like the stability of the global economy and saving the planet from the worst effects of climate change. But considering the tug of war over Taiwan, any space for collaboration is rapidly shrinking. And let's hope the Xi-Biden meeting can reverse this. And talking about doomsday predictions, Elon Musk is making some as well at Twitter. He has warned the company could go bankrupt. The chief twit has sent out an email to the employees, and I'm quoting now. Sorry that this is my first email to the whole company, but there is no way to sugarcoat the message. Without significant subscription revenue, there is a good chance Twitter will not survive the upcoming economic downturn. And here's another quote. We just definitely need to bring in more cash than we spend. And if we don't do that, there is a massive negative cash flow. Then bankruptcy is not out of the question. Within a couple of weeks of acquiring Twitter, Musk is talking about bankruptcy. Why is he worried about keeping Twitter afloat? That's because the numbers do not look pretty. Let's take a closer look at Twitter's financial track record. The Bluebird has lost money 6 of the 8 years. Twitter is now a private company. Its last financial results came out in July. Sales fell by 1% year-on-year basis. Revenue was just $1.18 billion, and Musk simply cannot afford to have these numbers. That's because he has bills to pay. Elon Musk, remember, borrowed $13 billion to buy Twitter. This debt is now on Twitter's books, by the way. Every year, Musk needs to pay more than $1 billion, and that is just interest payments to the banks. So Musk is right when he says that Twitter could go bankrupt. Going by the company's last financials, Twitter is perhaps earning just about enough to pay interest on loans. Beyond that, the platform will struggle to even keep its lights on. What Musk does not say, however, is this. Twitter now has added financial liabilities thanks to his debts. The question now is, what does Musk plan to do about this? Soon after the takeover, Musk made some aggressive moves. Let's see how those have panned out. The first big move, of course, was Twitter Blue, the $8 a month subscription service. Anyone who pays gets that blue verification check mark. The service started rolling out this week, but it has already run into trouble. Today, Twitter seems to have turned off Blue. Users are unable to sign up. What exactly happened? Twitter is yet to come clean, but recently several fake accounts were verified. According to reports, fake verified accounts for Apple, Tesla, SpaceX, and countless other brands started duping Twitter users, and clearly the company failed to catch up. Musk tried another thing, layoffs. Reports say around 3,700 people were sacked. That was equal to 50% of Twitter's workforce. Musk ordered their firing to reduce the salary bills. And how did that move pan out? Well, a few days ago, some of those who were sacked got calls. Twitter wanted to hire them back. And the chaos deepened today. More shakeups are happening at the top. Twitter's head of trust and safety and its head of sales have now left the company. Here is what those who chose to return can expect. Musk has made some new rules for Twitter employees. The work from home policy has been scrapped. The staff is being asked to work in 12-hour shifts. Office perks have been drastically cut, and this includes free food. Musk has told his staff to work with a maniacal sense of urgency, quote unquote. Well, that's straight out of Musk's Tesla playbook. He has pushed similar policies there in the past. Some of these decisions deserve greater scrutiny. US federal law has set out some tough requirements for overtime. Those working over 40 hours a week must be paid more. And talking about scrutiny, the US government seems keen on putting Musk under the lens. Listen in to Joe Biden.
Do you think Elon Musk is a threat to U.S. national security? And should the U.S., and with the tools you have, investigate his joint acquisition of Twitter with foreign governments, which include the Saudis?
I think that Elon Musk's cooperation and/or technical relationships with other countries is worthy of being looked at. Whether or not he is doing anything inappropriate, I'm not suggesting that. I'm suggesting that it's worth being looked at. But that's all I'll say.
Seems like the Biden administration is keen on looking into Musk's business ties. As they say, when it rains, it pours. Our next story is from Ukraine. It's been 24 hours since Russia announced its retreat from Kherson, the only capital city it managed to capture in Ukraine. Last we checked, Moscow had said that the withdrawal was complete. Visuals from Kherson showed Ukrainian soldiers tearing down Russian billboards and Ukrainian flags there. But despite this, Russia maintains that Kherson still remains Russian territory. What do we make of that? Is the Russian retreat part of a larger plan? Our next report explores.
These images are from Kherson. What you see are locals tearing down a Russian billboard poster. Immediately after Russian forces retreated from the city, in another part of the city, a video shows soldiers taking down a Russian flag, as another soldier plants his country's flag instead. Similar visuals are emerging from all parts of the city, with Ukrainian soldiers waving their flag and chanting, "Glory to Ukraine."
The settlement of Klapaya, 28th Separate Mechanized Brigade, Kurds Unit. Now the settlement is freed. This is Ukraine. Glory to Ukraine.
These images are striking. For Russia, they're humiliating at best. After laying control over the city in March and calling it a territory which was theirs forever, they have now withdrawn in the dark of the night. In fact, the Russian Defense Ministry says the withdrawal is now fully complete.
The transfer of Russian troop units to the left bank of the Dnipro River was completed at 5 a.m. Moscow time today. Not a single piece of military hardware was left on the right bank. All Russian service personnel crossed to the left bank of the Dnipro River. Units of the Russian armed forces have taken up tactical defensive lines and positions, organized in advance by military engineers. No loss of military personnel, weapons or material has been allowed to happen. All civilians wishing to leave the right bank part of Kherson region have been helped to evacuate.
The repeat is embarrassing, but Russia couldn't care less. It says their withdrawal from Kherson doesn't change the status of the region, that it still remains Russian territory.
Kherson is the subject of the Russian Federation. It is legally fixed and defined. There are no changes, and there can be no changes.
Back in Kyiv, the Ukrainian president doesn't agree. He's calling the Russian retreat a result of the heroism of Ukrainian forces.
At the peak of mine contamination in Ukraine, we had 300,000 square kilometers of territory dangerous to life. Today, thanks to the true heroism of Ukrainian sappers and pyrotechnicians, our rescuers, and everyone who helps them, we have managed to reduce the area of land contaminated by mines and ammunition. Now about 170,000 square kilometers remain to be demined. In particular, it's also in the most difficult places, where hostilities are still ongoing, where the enemy will add landmines before its withdrawal, as it is now in Kherson, plus forests, plus a huge area of fields.
In other parts of Ukraine, some people are celebrating the retreat, but there are some others who are skeptical about it. They're wondering why Russia left the city in the first place. And if it did, was it part of a larger plan?
They are leaving Kherson, they are not leaving Kherson, they are simply withdrawing from their positions. When ours go there, Kherson will sink in the Dnipro. It's my opinion.
It is impossible to believe in this, that no one will give us anything back just like that. In addition, I have friends who have a friend in Kherson, and she said that there are even more Russian troops in Kherson.
Truth be told, their doubts are rooted in reality. Look at this report. Advancing Ukrainian troops in Kherson are facing challenges in the form of mines and booby traps. In fact, many officials say these obstacles could render Kherson a city of death. Whatever be the case, Russia's retreat from Kherson is a clear shift in momentum in this 9-month-old war. The chief of NATO says it shows that Moscow is under heavy pressure in Ukraine. What sort of pressure? Only the days ahead will tell.
Let's now talk about what's happening in Afghanistan. The rule of Taliban 2.0 is turning out to be eerily similar to the Taliban of the late 90s. All those initial promises have faded with time, and one gender has been systematically excluded from society and public life. No points for guessing, I'm talking about females. Have a look at this headline. Women in Afghanistan have been barred from gyms. I'm talking about the same gyms with the treadmills and weights. What's the logic behind barring women from them or denying them the right to good health and fitness? The Taliban saying the hijab is being compromised. The group saying it has tried segregating men and women in parks and gyms. How exactly? By ordering separate days of the week for men and women. But that has not worked. And now the spokesperson of the Ministry of Vice and Virtue saying, in most cases, we have seen both men and women together in parks, and unfortunately, the hijab was not observed. So we had to come up with another decision, and for now, we ordered all parks and gyms to be closed for women. Sounds like a dark joke, a political satire at best. Except it's neither. This is the dark reality of women living in Taliban's Afghanistan. The Taliban saying it will be visiting gyms and parks regularly to ensure that the facilities are free of women. But the women say the Taliban is making up stories, that women have in fact been training separately. You know, none of this is what the Taliban had initially promised. On the 15th of August 2021, the Taliban entered Kabul and took control of Afghanistan. In the weeks that followed, the group promised that women would be given their rights within the Sharia law. You know, the right to education, the right to study. But a year on, the words have not translated into action. If anything, the Taliban have walked in the opposite direction. It started by abolishing the Ministry of Women's Affairs. Then it banned girls from attending school post 6th grade. Today, Afghanistan is the only country in the world where girls are banned from middle school. And this ban has forced parents to marry off young girls. They say it's better that the girls are married off than sit idle at home without a future. The Taliban insisting that the ban is temporary, but the world knows better. The world knows that Taliban 2.0 is old wine in a new bottle. The group's actions do not force you to believe otherwise. Take, for example, what happened in May this year. The Taliban passed a decree. It said that women must cover their faces in public. What's more, women must also remain in their homes, except when it was necessary for them to step out. But who gets to define necessity in the Taliban's Afghanistan? At least women do not. Women in Afghanistan do not have a say, a voice or choice. They have been stripped of their basic rights and identity. The Taliban have undone decades of progress. Today, the Taliban controls what women wear, how they travel, with whom they travel, the kind of cell phones that women must carry, and the places they go to. Something as basic as a gym has been made off limits. Parks as well are off limits. There is no answer to how young children will ever get to visit the same parks because now their mothers will not be able to accompany them. But do the Taliban care? Today, Afghanistan ranks 156th out of 156 countries in the Global Gender Gap Index 2021. 5.5 million women in Afghanistan are in need of urgent humanitarian assistance, as are 6.3 million girls. But 77% of Afghan civil society organizations have no funding and are no longer running any projects. But even talking about this crisis is a big no-no in Afghanistan. The Taliban have issued orders excluding women from the media. TV stations cannot show women's faces. They are not allowed to put forward women's perspectives or even talk about women's needs. In May this year, the Taliban ordered women journalists to cover their faces when they are on air. So much for Taliban 2.0. You know, headlines like these are a question mark against the judgment of countries who encouraged the international community to engage with the Taliban, who insisted that the world believe the Taliban's promise for a change. Well, guess what? There has been no change. If anything, the change has been in the reverse direction. And here's something else that has not changed. China remains synonymous with surveillance. More specifically, its surveillance campaign targeting the Uyghurs in its Xinjiang region. A new report reveals a Chinese spyware campaign is targeting the Uyghurs through apps that can track the user's location and harvest sensitive data. Take a look.
This is China's northwestern region of Xinjiang. Earlier this year, the United Nations published an assessment on Xinjiang. It called out China's human rights abuses. The UN report said Beijing may have committed crimes against humanity. The report by the Office of the UN High Commissioner for Human Rights was long awaited. It concluded that serious human rights violations against the Uyghur and other predominantly Muslim communities have been committed. Uyghurs are a Turkic Muslim minority, predominantly in China's northwestern region of Xinjiang. China has been carrying out mass monitoring of Uyghurs in Xinjiang. This has been happening for years. Now, fresh details have emerged. According to a report by a cybersecurity firm called Lookout, a spyware campaign is targeting Uyghurs. According to researchers, evidence has been found of Chinese spyware in Uyghur language apps. The apps include dictionaries, religious apps, and maps. The spyware enables hackers to collect sensitive data. This includes a user's location, call logs, text messages, and could also take photos and record calls. As per the researchers, the apps could have been used to detect evidence of religious extremism or separatism, for which Uyghurs have been imprisoned as part of a crackdown in Xinjiang. Researchers say the spyware is connected to a Chinese government-backed hacking group. According to the report, the campaign appears to primarily target Uyghurs in China. However, we found evidence of broader targeting of Muslims and Uyghurs outside of Xinjiang. Several of the samples we analyzed masqueraded as mapping apps for other countries with significant Muslim populations, like Turkey or Afghanistan. In fact, Turkey is home to the largest Uyghur diaspora outside of Central Asia. An estimated 50,000 Uyghurs live there. Just a few days ago, 50 countries called on China to fully implement all the recommendations in the UN report. Guess how China had responded to the report? By promising to not cooperate with the UN Human Rights Office. Well, no surprises there. Bureau Report, WION, World is One.
Let's now shift our attention to the United States. The midterm elections are over. The results still remain unclear. The control of the Congress continues to hang in the balance. The votes are still being counted. But this story is not about that. It's about a political tussle within the Republican Party. Between the two leading faces, to be precise, Donald Trump and Ron DeSantis. One is a former president. The other is a rising star. DeSantis is someone who can challenge Trump in the 2024 election, and Donald Trump does not like that one bit. So today, he launched a scathing attack against him. He issued a lengthy statement. Ron had low approval, bad polls, and no money, but he said that if I would endorse him, he could win. I endorsed him. It was as though, to use a bad term, a nuclear weapon went off. Trump has even given DeSantis a name, Ron DeSanctimonious. And it doesn't end there. Trump said something else as well. Listen to this. This is Trump talking about an election in 2018. It was a governor race, and this was the first time Ron DeSantis had won. I'm quoting. When votes were being stolen by the corrupt election process in Broward County, and Ron was going down 10,000 votes a day, along with now Senator Rick Scott, I sent in the FBI and the U.S. attorneys, and the ballot theft immediately ended. Just prior to them running out of the votes necessary to win, I stopped his election from being stolen, quote unquote. Let me put this simply for you. Trump says he used the FBI to win the 2018 election. These claims could put him in trouble. And there are now growing calls to investigate what really happened in the 2018 election. An attorney in Florida is now filing the complaint. He explained the basis of his complaint in a tweet. DeSantis defeated Andrew Gillum by 32,463 votes. Trump said tonight that he sent in the FBI and U.S. attorneys to ensure their victory. This seems like a case that Florida's election police should immediately investigate. That is the rationale. The margin of victory was a little over 32,000 votes, and that is just 0.4% of the total votes, a very thin margin. Where will this go? We don't know yet. Or how true are these allegations? What is becoming clear, however, is this. Donald Trump will only intensify his battle against Ron DeSantis. And we got a trailer of that during the campaigning for the midterms.
Now we're putting them up. We're winning big, big, big in the Republican Party for the nomination like nobody's ever seen before. Let's see, there it is, Trump at 71, Ron DeSanctimonious at 10%, Mike Pence at 7%. Oh, Mike's doing better than I thought. Liz Cheney, there's no way she's at 4%.
But Trump's attacks are not working. Already, the Republicans are calling DeSantis the new Republican Party leader. Now, there are two reasons for this. Number one, his handsome victory in Florida. DeSantis defeated his Democratic rival by a margin 20%. Reason number 2 being the falling political capital of Donald Trump. A number of candidates he endorsed for the midterm elections have lost. Fellow Republicans have started criticizing him. So DeSantis seems to have the edge. How would he approach his contest against Trump? An expert has the answer.
Yeah, we're putting them up. We're winning big, big, big in the Republican Party for the nomination like nobody's ever seen before. Let's see, there it is, Trump at 70.
Will Trump double down on his attacks, or will he take a step back? He is supposed to make a special announcement next week, and we will be tracking those updates. Our next story is from South Korea, where a cop being investigated over the Halloween stampede has been found dead. The 55-year-old cop was accused of deleting intelligence reports warning of the possibility of a massacre or a serious incident. Our next report getting you the details.
The story begins on the 29th of October. South Korea was celebrating Halloween. The first mask-free Halloween in 3 years. The excitement was evident. The impending disaster, not so much. This is Taiwan. You could call it Seoul's party district. Taiwan has bars and restaurants, and on the 29th of October, some 100,000 people had made their way to Taiwan by early evening. The narrow streets and alleys were packed. People began posting social media messages, saying the ever-increasing crowd made them feel unsafe. At 6:34 p.m. local time, a call was made to the police. The caller warned of a possibility of a big accident. Clearly, the police response was inadequate, because a few hours later there was a stampede. 156 people died, and 198 others were injured. Most of them were in their 20s and 30s. The Halloween catastrophe shook the world. People asked, what was the police doing? There were 137 officers on the ground at Taiwan that night. An officer called Jong was in charge of intelligence at the police station covering Taiwan. At least 12 emergency calls were made before the massacre that night. They repeatedly asked the police to help. In the last call, made at 10:11 p.m., the caller said, "It feels like people can get crushed here." What was the police's response? The police responded to 4 of the 11 calls by deploying officers. But reports say the cops closed the case without tangible action. In the days following the stampede, the focus shifted to the response of Jong and his team. The police was asked to explain why they took little action. Jong was being investigated. He was accused of deleting intelligence reports warning of a serious accident. He was slammed by South Korean lawmakers. They demanded that those responsible for the removal of documents be arrested and punished. A South Korean news agency reported that charges against Jong included abuse of authority, destruction of evidence, and professional negligence resulting in death. Earlier this week, the officer was suspended from duty. And earlier today, Jong was found dead at his home. The officer was 55 years old. He was found dead by his family members. So far, there is no official word on the cause of his death. Bureau Report, WION, World is One.
And let's now move across to the UK. After 100 years, the British Army's Sikh soldiers are being given prayer books. This comes after a 2-year-long campaign. Our next report getting you the complete story.
The Sikh Empire defied the British Raj till the mid-1800s. Even after that, Britain recognized the Sikh martial prowess. Sikh soldiers were recruited by the colonial empire. Tens of thousands of Sikh soldiers served in the two world wars. During the first one, they were allowed to carry prayer books. But then the practice stopped. Now, after 100 years, Sikh daily prayer books have returned. The prayer books, called Nitnem Gutkas, have been issued again. The British Army Gutka has a camouflage cover, and the Royal Navy and RAF Gutka has a navy blue cover. They have been printed in 3 languages. Reports say Sikh soldiers have campaigned for about 2 years to reintroduce them. But if Sikhs have always served in the British Armed Forces, why did it take so long for the prayer books to return? Especially since the British Army has been providing Christian religious texts for years. During the days of the Raj, Sikh soldiers were sometimes asked to don helmets instead of their turbans. Many refused. Some were penalized for disobeying orders. But the British were at war. They needed all the men they could get. So many turbaned Sikhs served despite the uniform code. The same privilege wasn't given to people of all faiths. But the Sikhs could wear their turbans with pride on the battlefield. However, there was still resistance in the UK. Resistance to allowing articles of faith thought of as different. 2012 was the first time a turbaned Sikh man was allowed to stand as part of the Buckingham Palace Guard. But he faced criticism from his peers in the military and some traditionalists. In 2018, a turbaned Sikh soldier marched to mark Queen Elizabeth II's birthday. This had not happened till that year. The usual arguments to disallow religious markers have been tradition, conformity, and heritage. The very definition of uniform has been touted. Much of the resistance has worn down over time, but it has taken continuous effort to get to this stage. Remember 2 years of campaigning to print the Sikh prayer books. Now, after 100 years, non-Sikh British soldiers will see their comrades in arms pray using books provided by the armed forces. Bureau Report, WION World is One.
And we are wrapping the show tonight with a story that affects all of us. The ongoing layoffs across the world. They may be easy for the employers to execute, but for the employees, they only bring hardships. So how does one cope with them? How does one deal with the emotional and mental impact of losing a job? We spoke to a few experts and came up with some solutions. In the next 3 minutes, we are taking you through them one at a time. But first, let's discuss the issue at hand. The ongoing firing spree. Twitter, Meta, Stripe, Lyft, a host of companies are sacking their employees. It is officially the layoff season. Have a look at the numbers. Lyft has cut nearly 700 staffers. Twitter has cut around 3,700 jobs. Meta plans to fire over 11,000 employees. Fintech giant Stripe has cut down on 1,100 jobs. Coinbase has fired over 1,000 employees. Netflix has cut over 450 jobs this year, 450 jobs. And Shopify has sacked 1,000 employees. All these developments have unfolded in the last couple of months. The question is, what explains them? A simple answer is revenues. Earnings across the tech sector are weakening. The economic forecasts have started looking dire. So tech firms are slowly tightening their belt and cutting their workforce to save costs. So how should the people who are getting fired, deal with this? Getting laid off can never be easy to deal with. It is known to cause immense anxiety naturally, besides bringing financial difficulties. So how does one cope up? Tonight we get you a few tips that might help. To start with, allow yourself time to grieve. It's okay to be sad. given what you're going through. But before doing anything, address how you're feeling. Recognize your emotions, assess your thoughts, and reflect upon them. Journaling and meditating to ease the stress is a good way to start. Do not take a decision in haste. Tip number 2, keep in touch with family and friends. Maintain regular contact with them. Communicate the happenings in your life. There is no point in keeping secrets. It's not only stressful for you, but also worries those around you. So talk to them. For all you know, they could be in a position to help. Number 3, nurture yourself. Do not let the stress get to you. Instead, use the emotional upheaval to motivate yourself to do better. Pick up a hobby, go to the gym, or learn a new skill. Use the time off to become a better version of yourself. Number 4, reconnect with old friends. Begin reaching out to your network. It's more expansive than you think. Get in touch with your former boss or that colleague you once worked with, or even a college professor who helped you with an internship. Let them know what you're going through. Brief them about the opportunities you're looking for, whether it's online, over a phone call, or in person. Networking still is and will always be a vital component of professional life. Tip number 5, if you keep the layoff and the job hunting aside, you have the best gift in hand. That's your time. You can either use it to overwhelm yourself, or you can use it for something productive. Just dedicate the number of hours you worked towards something else you could not work on while you were doing your job. Remember, what you're going through will pass, only if you prepare and plan for it to go. Number 6, and this one's important, optimize your resume and LinkedIn profile. They are both very necessary. They can help you optimize your prospects, get you in touch with prospective employers. You can set job alerts for yourself, or simply go through the website to have a look at the open listings. Interestingly, there are many companies that have job reservations for people who have been laid off. And here's tip number 7. If you have lost your job, it's fine to vent out with your former colleagues, but you need to be careful about how publicly you talk about your exit. Criticizing your former workplace on the internet will not help. It only paints a wrong impression on your future employer. So keep calm and pay attention to what you say about your former workplace, especially on the internet. Because anybody can find information, the information that you posted in the past. At the end of the day, remember, you have to spin your job loss into something meaningful. This is something that can happen to anyone. It all depends on how you can turn the negative into a learning opportunity. So challenge yourself, learn new skills, and above all, keep the faith. Let's now tell you what else made news around the world. Time for Gravitas Global Headlines.
EU says Eurozone set to fall into recession this winter as it hikes forecast for Eurozone inflation in 2023 to 6.1%. British Finance Minister says he is focused on bringing down inflation as the country appears to be heading into recession as the economy shrank between July and September. Australian police say Russian hackers were behind the data breach at one of the country's major health insurers.
We believe those responsible for the breach are in Russia.
The top cop says intelligence indicated a group of loosely affiliated cyber criminals stole the data. Turkey prosecutors sought to jail Istanbul's mayor for at least 15 months, a sentence that would see him banned from politics over a remark he made after beating President Erdogan's ally in 2019 polls. International football body FIFA says Qatar has agreed to allow direct flights from Israel that will be open to Palestinian fans too. Peruvian police fired tear gas at protesters to clear thousands of supporters of President Pedro Castillo. They were demonstrating against the Congress's attempts to remove him from office. A Colombo court issues an order to record a statement from former President Gotabaya Rajapaksa over $50,000 that was found by anti-government protesters at the president's house. Amid acute poverty and accelerated inflation, thousands of mostly poor and unemployed Argentines marched, demanding more work and money for welfare program. Sadio Mane has been named in Senegal's 26-man squad despite injury concerns. The 30-year-old sustained an injury to his right fibula while playing for Bayern Munich on Wednesday, but does not need surgery. There is no certainty, though, over whether he gets to play. There is a threat of rain over the T20 World Cup final between England and Pakistan in Melbourne on Sunday. The ICC has modified the playing conditions and extended the playing hours on the reserve day in a bid to get a result. 10 overs are needed per side to constitute a result.
On that note, it's a wrap on this edition of Gravitas. Leaving you with Gravitas images. Have a good weekend. Thanks for watching.